All right, welcome YouTube. Welcome guys, welcome everyone. We're going to cover the stock charts. Today I'm going to look at the weekly charts. I've been making a habit of going through the weekly charts at the end of the week and putting a video out that really keeps us in balance in terms of understanding where the bigger trend, where the big picture is going, where's the current of the river flowing. We always want to be looking for that and trying to paddle with the current. And so we're going to look at those. And then anybody who's interested, I am going to put out another video today with subscriber stock picks. I've gotten several requests to do different stocks, so I'm going to go through some of those and put out a separate video. Let's get right into it. Start looking at these weekly charts. Nasdaq futures. Okay, so you can see here the Nasdaq futures. Big doji candle right here. That's the first thing that kind of catches my eye, is this reversal doji candle. This is a shooting star doji, and what I'm seeing here is what you want to look for is confirmation. So dojis show up all the time. They show up often, and you want to look for some sort of confirmation the next week. So selling the next week, and really the more selling the better, basically. But if you get selling next week, that would confirm this as a reversal candle doji, and then that just lets you know that a reversal has taken place. Now on the weekly, it's not, I don't use the weeklies to enter positions. I use the dailies and the hourlies for my positioning. The weekly really just gives you an idea that the bigger trend might have changed if we get that reversal kind of top. So that's what I see on the futures. We did also, you can see here this resistance line right up here. We came all the way up, almost tagged it, but we didn't quite fully tag it. We got all the way up here to 12,254, and it was slightly higher. So if we head higher next week, then, I'm looking for a back test of this broken resistance. That's what I see there on the Nasdaq futures. SPY futures, same thing. It's not as much of a doji right there. It is a slight doji, not quite as much as the Nasdaq. And we basically are just chopping around below what I see as the resistance line from May, basically. Oh, sorry, this is all the way from 2009. You can see here that we're just right up there along the right up there along resistance for the entire bull market, but we can go slightly higher. So that's the thing, is it's kind of in the area where it could go higher, and it's not an area I want to necessarily short at where we're at right now. We could get up slightly higher and hit this resistance. So for now, I'm gonna just continue to look at the dailies and the hourly charts to find potential signs of an entry. Let's look at the triple Qs. Same thing here. Really, all I see, there's no doji or anything. So, it was a higher weekly close. We continue to move higher. That's what I see on the weekly. And so I'm continuing to anticipate that we may need to go all the way up and do a full back test of this broken trend line, probably up around 310 or somewhere right around there on the triple Qs. And that would be a resistance. This is your trend line for 2020. We broke trend. Now you come in for a full back test and then roll over. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, if this is going to be the top and this is where it's going to fail, we'll look to the daily and the hourly charts to show us that. As of right now on the weekly, this thing looks like it's just making a new higher close and continuing to move higher on the weekly chart. SPY chart, same deal. Closed slightly higher than the previous week, and we continue to move higher. So this thing, I'm really looking for a potential back test of this green trend line up here around 370. It's about 370 or 3,700, I think is that. So looking for that could obviously happen, or we could stop here. But again, we'll look at the daily and the hourly charts to give us an idea of if we're going to break. IWM is interesting. IWM, you can see weekly close above this resistance right here at 159.71. This is the small cap ETF, and slightly, about an even close with last week, but we closed above the support. So What I'm looking for this to break down, I'd like to see it close back below that level, this 159 area. And that was major, that's major support / resistance right here. So we've overshot it a couple times. You can see we overshot it here. We overshot it here. We've never been able to really substantially build upon a breakout above this level. So is that what this is? Again, we're just going to fade and kind of create like a triple top and then roll over. Well, we have yet to see, but 159, it's about 159.55. A weekly close below that would be pretty bearish, and that's a recapture back down into the big trading channel that this thing's been in for quite a while. I do want to show the daily chart real quick on this. Just I spotted it, the hourly chart on IWM. We're starting to get negative divergence. Here it is right here. There's your negative divergence in the RSI and the PPO, and you can see we started it right here, made a new higher high in price, and didn't quite make a higher high right there. So a new higher high would be a divergent high. It's starting to build. So going back to the weekly, that's what tells me that this probably or has a high probability of failing and going back down within the channel. So we're going to watch it. But no reason to short it yet or anything like that. There's no signals, no trigger events. A lot of people ask me to cover bonds. We'll look at TLT here on the weekly. Here's the support line that I have right now on TLT, 160.90. It's about 161. We closed back above it. So that previous week was just a dip below it, and this week we're back above it. So I think that, if I had to guess, I'd say bonds are going higher, yields are going lower, and stocks are ultimately going lower. I just don't know if that's taking place right now, but I do think that that's probably how this is playing out. Here's gold weekly. We'll zoom in. Weekly chart here. And you can see close down back below this. What I have is kind of this short-term resistance right here at 1906, and we're back down below it. So gold continues to be in a downtrend. This line right here marks the downtrend, and we continue to push lower highs and lower lows. And so I'm expecting now a move down to 1790. I've had it on there for over a month now, and just continuing to this continues to downtrend, so it's continuing to make its way down that way. The dollar closed right at resistance. Basically, you can see here at 93. It's still no substantial breakouts in the dollar, so we'll see what happens next week. It's kind of 50-50 right now. I don't know. I think it's going higher up to 95.67. But as of the close this week, we're just kind of right at the area where it could go either way. Now you can see here big long-term trend line right here going back to 2011 in the dollar, and this is a weekly chart. So these are big macro trends, and we broke below. And I'm looking for some sort of a back test, maybe even a recovery. This could even be a false breakdown. That would come most likely with a big move down in the stock market. So that's completely possible. But as of right now, I'm still looking for at least a back test of that trend line. The way I see this potentially playing out is the dollar starts to rally up into this area. The markets start crashing. The Fed comes out and does some other program, something. There's some sort of stimulus, whether it's the Fed or the government. And then gold, hits that 1790, and then gold starts to rally, and the dollar continues its descent. That's a possibility. I'm looking for that. Barrick Gold here on the weekly, just been dead money. So I exited this one at this 28.40 area right here, and it's basically been dead money ever since. So that's a long time to just sit there and think that things are breaking out. I mean, that is 175 days, quite a while. So going really all the way back to April. And so we're just continuing to get rejected at this 28.30. I think Barrick continues to pull back with gold. I am longer term bullish on Barrick, and I would like to, I'll look for signs of when a potential re-entry is. It's in a longer term bull market, so I'm looking for a pullback to major support, but then continuing the bull market. XLV here, second largest sector in the S&P 500. I don't see anything that tells me what the direction is next week. We're kind of in the middle of the range. Top of the range right now is up around this 111, 112 area. And then the bottom of the range is really at 97. We're kind of in the middle towards the top end of the range. So there's nothing to really do. I do think we're heading down to 97 eventually. I see that in, you've got big negative divergence right here on the weekly chart. So that tells me that longer term we are heading down to that 97 and possibly going to go lower and, possibly break that. And I don't see anything in XLF that really tells me where this thing wants to go either. I suspect maybe XLF wants to run up and fill some gaps up at this. Actually, it looks like it did fill these gaps last week. Filled those gaps right there, but those gaps had already filled right here. So I don't know. Maybe it wants to run up and do another back test up around 2850, 29, depending on when we get there. Or maybe it wants to roll over. There's obviously big negative divergence. Oh, sorry. There's actually no divergence in the XLF. Nothing's out of the ordinary. The momentum has made lower lows as price made lower lows. Then price is starting to move up, and the momentum's kind of moving up. So the momentum is moving with the price action. It's not that diverging really on the weekly chart. So I don't see anything here. Maybe this just wants to muddle around and chop around and for a while. But again, this is the weekly chart. We'll look to the hourly and the daily charts to find better entries or signs of movement. Okay, DraftKings, just want to cover this on the weekly. You can see we basically got short way up here and it fell all the way down pretty much to weekly support. You can see this was the last peak right back here in DraftKings. I expect we're going to bounce around here a little bit. Maybe have an up week next week. Chop around a little bit. And if it's going to go lower, we'll find that out on the daily and the weekly charts. But right now, that pullback was really what I was looking for. And that's why I started pointing this out a couple weeks ago. And from the top to the bottom, that's about a 30% drop. And that's what I was looking for that move. So I'm not really interested in this one too much anymore unless we get some sort of signs that this thing's going a lot lower or if it wants to go higher, I suppose. But we'll look for stuff, but I'm most likely moving on to better trade setups. And Redfin. All right, so caught this one perfectly. Called this out a couple days ago. Back when it was way up here, way up at this 55, I was looking for, it looked like it was weak, looked like it wanted to break down. It had the setup and everything. And since then, it's pretty much plunged. This week was just really a dumpster fire of a week for this stock, down 12.5% on the week. And what am I thinking? Well, probably a little bit lower, coming down into this support here at 46.31. Next week it'll be about 46.50 or so. Again, you'd always want to step in a little bit early. Don't use those levels exactly. But I think we probably tag that, hold support, then we chop around a little bit, and then we got to look for signs of a larger break. So if we break this level, this support line, then we can start targeting a lot lower levels. And really, I see this level 31.33 in the cards if we start to break this support level. So we'll watch that next week. Again, the hourly and the daily charts will give us a more acute entry. And so we'll continue to look at that. Let's look at Tesla here. Yeah, so, my trend line, I like my trend line on the weekly. And here's the thing. The trend line, I've looked at this trend line on my daily and hourly charts, and I've tried to redraw it to see if I'm just wrong with my trend, and maybe this thing is still holding trend on this logarithmic scale chart. And I can't find it, So the trend line that I have, I think, is the best match. And when I look at it here on the weekly, it really looks like a good match. If you can see here, I've got basically all these reactions where the weeks just held right there. Every single week right here, we were above the trend. Even though intra week it dipped below, we held above. And then we've just started to break. And you can see here, now it's getting rejected at the trend line on the weekly. There's your tail, and it got rejected and sold off. So that's resistance right now. Traders are selling it at resistance. That's why this is now a sell the rip market. When you get below the trend, when you get up to resistance, when it rips up to resistance, everyone sells it. And so that's, whereas before everyone's buying at support, now everyone's selling at resistance. And at least they started that the last 2 weeks. Right here, they tagged it, sold it down a little, and then this week tagged resistance again, sold it down. So I'm expecting this is just the transition from one trend to the other is what it looks like. Being it wasn't an uptrend, now it's starting to transition as sellers exit and there's fewer buyers. And then we start to get and then we'll start to get to the down move. So I'm anticipating that down move. I think it's coming. And I think we start to break down, heading down to, there's several levels, but I really like this gap area that you'll find on the hourly and the daily charts. And that's where I think it's heading. I'm watching NVIDIA for a nice good short. We are starting to get negative divergence here on the weekly. You can see right there. Now, if it needs to turn down to confirm this negative divergence. It's just, if you look, it's just kind of flattening out right here. So you need the RSI to start to turn down just a little to confirm that it's a lower peak right here. And then this would be a higher price on the weekly. I don't think we have negative divergence yet though on the daily and the hourly. So I'm looking for that. Ultimately, I think if we run up and do some sort of a back test around the 630 or so, 625. Yes, it's about 625. That might be the best area, and we'll watch for that. Zoom here is probably the stock I'm most interested in shorting, but not yet. And the reason why is this thing's just on a rocket ship to the moon right now. And I don't, again, people ask why not just go long if it's going up. I don't chase moves. If a move has been made like this and it's up 400% or whatever this thing's up, I think it's the highest gainer this year. It's up 800%. I'm not jumping on and going long something that's up 800% in just a couple months. What I look for is the momentum, this powerful momentum to the upside to fade, because usually you get an equally impulsive move to the downside, if not more impulsive. And to me, that's where most of the money at this point in time is to be made. Obviously, the money to be made down here was to the upside, but now I think it's to be made to the downside. So that's what I look for. I don't see anything yet. I don't see any signs of this thing slowing. No dojis. Nice strong week this week. No divergences on the momentum. So in general, it's still strong. I don't see anything yet, but I'm looking for it. Here's one wheat, W-E-A-T. It is a wheat ETF or ETN. Right at resistance here on the weekly. Just a slight overshoot right there. It did close slightly above, but basically it's right there. You can see we've been in this area. This is the zone that held as support back here. And then once broken, it became resistance right there, and now we're at it again. So if we get a break higher, and it's impulsive, then wheat might be beginning a new bull market. Kind of the beginnings of a bull market where you have this big. If I can grab my line, if you grab this big downtrend, this is a bear market here, and then you can see we started to, we basically, I can't quite make that, but it's basically kind of bottoming, making this basing pattern here, this flattening pattern, and now you look for kind of a breakout. So it's possible that it's coming. I don't know, but as of right now, it's really right at resistance, so it's a little too early to tell, but could be starting a new bull market. Okay, XOM. So I like it long in this area. It's not my favorite, but I do like it. And here's the thing: we have this little down channel here. We broke to the upside, and then this week, really just another kind of consolidation week. We dipped down towards support and just kind of held in this area. So still looking for this to hold. Right now, 3376 should be support. That's where it should hold, and I'm looking for this thing to move higher. up towards 41. So we'll watch for that. Now, if it breaks here, then, and if it actually breaks down and starts to break support, this could be the beginning of, a much larger move to the downside. You can see here on the bigger picture, we have kind of this big crash right here back in May or March and April and stuff. And then we have a rally, which looks like a bear market rally, and then the continuation to the downside. So this might be something that wants to chop around a little bit and then break to the downside and really start to head substantially lower. So we will watch for that and look for some support lines. So if that's going to break, this is potentially the beginning of a big bear market in XOM. So that's why I'm not in love with this thing. I think that I'm looking for a move up to 41, but I'm also hesitant and realize that there is the potential for this to break down and start a major bear market in this stock. And if this stock does that, look for the other oil stocks to do that, and look for the market in general to do that. XOM is not going to be just one stock collapsing into a bear market without some other problems happening. Overstock, this is interesting. I mean, it's an interesting look on the weekly chart. You've got this uptrend line here that took place. We broke trend. We've been flagging out, bear flagging essentially, and looking for a breakdown, a break of this trend. So there's your break in trend right there. You got your flag, and then maybe you break, and it does something like, a breakdown to there. I'd have to tighten up my levels, but it's interesting. So what I see though is you've got some support down here at 63.97, about 64. A break in that is where the next short would probably be triggered. And resistance is right here at 85. We keep getting rejected there. So those are the levels on that one. PHM on the weekly still looks good. I'm short this. And you can see here's your uptrend here on the weekly. We broke right there. We've just tagged, zoom in here. We've tagged the trend line from below, and that's held as resistance each and every time. So held here, held here, held here. They kept closing it right there at it, but it kept getting rejected. This week we saw the sellers step in and actually start to sell. So we'll see if there's some continuation on this next week. I think there will be, but again, we'll need to watch. And let's see what negative divergence here on the weekly chart now if I can get my line working. Negative divergence right there, where you can see we made a high here with the high peak on the RSI, and then a slightly higher high, not very much, but slightly, and that's usually a key indicator that you're making just slightly higher highs, and a lower peak on the momentum, and you can see here the RSI is starting to turn down, starting to point down right there. And so negative divergence in play on the weekly chart. That's big picture stuff. So I am looking for this thing to roll over, and I've got this line 39.63 marked out. Must come from my hourly or daily, and that's 15-17% down. I think that's in play. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Those are some weekly charts, giving everybody an idea of kind of what I see for how this week closed out and what's potentially going to happen next week. Keep an eye on this doji here in Nasdaq futures, and if we open and get another weekly close below, then that could be a confirming reversal pattern. So it doesn't have to be, but it could be. Catch you guys on the next one.